Man, I can't believe we are actually finally here. It feels like only yesterday that we got the announcement we were going to get a Master Grade Gundam Dynames. Then that came out, it was absolutely fantastic, and from there on out we got a little bit of a hint on each of the Master Grade boxes as to what we would be seeing next. First it was the Kyrios right after the Dynames. On that box we saw Virtue in the background, and here we are. This box right here is a 2-in-1, so it does make it a little bit difficult to buy only the one. That is why I have two for this review. This kit can build the absolutely outstanding Gundam Virtue, but not just that, it has a full cast-off armor mechanism that allows you to have the Master Grade Gundam Nadleeh as well. This is ridiculously cool. Now that we actually do have the full squad, I am still hoping Bandai does something to update the Gundam Exia to the same Master Grade level we have right here. A lot of people mention potential Master Grade Extreme or a potential Exia 2.0, and I am definitely hoping for that. But there is one thing I will mention right now. Now that we're not getting any hints on the boxes as to what kit we will be seeing next, why did they put Kyrios in the back right hand section right there? Sure, this could just be complete speculation. They might have just popped it in there so it didn't have an empty space, but they could have put anything there. They could have put a Jinx, but they put the Kyrios. Does that mean a potential Master Grade Arios sometimes in the future? That's definitely an absolute stretch, but not something I would say no to. Hey, what is up everyone? Today I'm taking a look at this monolithic box right here. This, of course, is the Master Grade Gundam Virtue. So I'm going to mention right away, when it comes to the review of this particular kit, I am going to be splitting it into two for one main reason. I want to treat both variants of this kit as detailed as possible and in the regular review format. So this kit, you can build yourself a Gundam Nadleeh or you can build yourself a Gundam Virtue. You cannot have both at once, so you have to choose one or the other. And today I'm going to be going with what is inside the Gundam Virtue, and that is Gundam GN004 Gundam Nadleeh. And as usual, this video right here would not be possible without those absolutely awesome people over at HobbyLink Japan. So if you want a Nadleeh or Virtue all of your own, then check out that link down there in the description. So jumping into absolutely everything that is inside of this box that we're going to be taking a look at today, and that is everything we can use with the Gundam Nadleeh. That is the big old pair of GN cannons, the GN beam rifle, the GN shield, two pairs of GN beam sabers, as well as a beam effect for using with the GN beam rifle. The fingers that we have in here are those swappable style. We've got the solar reactor. I will mention there is a GN drive right now inside of Nadleeh, and then we've a 1/100 scale figure of Tierra and a 1/100 scale figure of Tierra Trans Am version. As for the stickers we have in here, we've got a bunch of sticker style decals. I have used some of these in the build, and some foil stickers. I've used all of these as well. Finally, I will mention in here we do have all the armor for making this into Gundam Virtue. This is still waiting to be panel lined and decaled up, so that will be in the next video coming tomorrow. Oh yeah, we have the GM bazooka, but that is also tomorrow. But for now and for today, let's take a look at the absolutely breathtaking Master Grade Gundam Nadleeh. Anyway, jumping right on into the aesthetics, and there's the Master Grade Gundam Nadleeh out of the box, snapped together with a little bit of panel lining and some of the decals. And I have to say, I am absolutely blown away. You may want to put that through a bit of a 00 fanboy filter to maybe get rid of a little bit of the bias, but this looks so nice. They've took all the aspects of Nadleeh, the fact that it's stripped down, basic, all in white, the blocky aesthetic, and the absolutely kick-ass GN cable hairdo. It all looks so good. The detailing is sandwiched up real nice, so what I mean by that is you can see some of the grey coming through parts like on the arms, you can see the grey around the yellow venting in the chest, lots of grey pieces come from underneath to give it a little bit more of a segmented, mechanical, varied surface, and this is an absolute feast for the eyes. Adding to the absolutely astounding visual appeal on Nadleeh right here is all of your Gundam 00 Season 1 staples. That is the shiny clear parts, which are the GN condensers. All of these feature some nice foil stickers underneath to make sure that you're actually seeing the light pass in and pass out again, and there's some great detail inside of those. Next up, we've got those holographic GN condensers in the elbows, and in the front of the legs, the upper legs and the lower legs. Now, if you've only ever built the Master Grade Exia and haven't built the other Series 1 Gundam 00 Master Grades, then you may not know that these slot in perfectly and are not an absolute pain in the butt like they are with the Exia. As for a bit of a size comparison, there it is side by side with a high-grade Gundam, just in case you're curious as to how tall it is. There it is side by side with the high-grade Nadleeh, and this is ridiculously worlds apart from this little guy. As for some 00 Master Grades, there it is beside the Master Grade Exia, beside the Master Grade Dynames, the Master Grade Kyrios, the Master Grade Gundam 00, the Master Grade Quanta, and finally beside the Master Grade Gundam Oryx 78-2. So as for the stickers, I've actually used every single one of these in the build, so going through them all the way from 1 to 7. Number 1 is that one right up there on the head camera. Number 2 is that one in there in the rear head camera. As for the rest of those stickers, they're all inside of the GN condensers, like on the side of the head, the ones in the elbows. And as for the differences between 4 and 5 right there, those are a choice between using ones for the Virtue or the Nadleeh. So a lot of this kit you get to choose kind of permanently in regard to stickers as to which version you're building. Honestly though, they're so small and unreadable, it won't make too much of a difference. Next up in here, we've got all of these decals. Now, these are just sticker-style decals, which means they do stand out a little bit on the surface. We've got a lot of these, and I've used pretty much all of the ones you stick on for Nadleeh. The rest are for on the Virtue, which we'll take a look at very soon. And speaking of those decals, it's time to give this thing the full 360-degree spin so you can see everything yourself in case there is something I forgot to mention. The decal that really does stand out the most to me is that one up on the upper left shoulder. That one is pretty cool. The rest are very, very subtle and are mainly just Caution, GN004, and miscellaneous GN stickers. But yeah, this kit looks absolutely phenomenal. Everything about it is so awesome, and I am absolutely blown away. There is one little aspect I would mention that I'm not the biggest fan of, and that is the fact that the hair is pre-posed. I'm not really sure what the alternatives would have been, or what else Bandai could have done, but that does mean some iconic Nadleeh poses cannot be pulled off directly because this hair can only really stay in that fixed position. But anyway, besides that, this thing is absolutely glorious. Let's check out the accessories. So jumping back to the overview of the accessories we're going to be taking a look at today, let's take them all now, one by one. So first off, as for the hands we have in here, these are those swappable style fingers. So some of the runners in here are labeled Master Grade 1100 GN frame. Now this would have came out originally in 2019 with the Master Grade Dynames. So that means this particular kit right here does share some parts with that kit as well as Kyrios. So there are a whole bunch of parts that are shared, just like you can see by the upper leg there. It's pretty much exactly the same in all of these. So that does go for the swappable hands in here as well, or should I say the swappable fingers. All of these will be compatible because they are exactly the same, which means weapon compatibility. So it won't just be a case of weapon compatibility. Now there'll be a whole lot of compatibility between the kits because they share the same frame. For example, I can just jump to the conclusion that both the arms and the legs should be exactly the same as what we see on Dynames. Now remember that Kyrios is a transforming suit, so some parts will be a little different. So let's see, can we just pop on Dynames' arm like so? Yes, we can. And there goes the leg. So that does mean there is a whole lot of potential customizations in here. Pop these all on, grab them from different kits, pick another color of your choice, and you can make yourself a 5th member of Celestial Being. Bye, fingers. So Kyrios' arms definitely don't fit, but the legs probably will. Yeah, there's a whole lot of potential for customs in here. But anyway, in here we've got widespread dynamic fingers and a pair of dynamic fists. We also have holding hands, which are trigger fingers for any weapons with triggers, and regular holding hands for anything without a trigger. Swapping these is extremely simple. They just pop off like so, and then you just pop on the other fingers that you want. Lastly, I will mention that the finger is articulated right here on a ball joint. Next up in here, we've got a pair of beam sabers. These are pretty much what we would have seen before with that flat beam. As for attaching these into the hands, it's the usual routine. You pop these into the swappable style fingers, the ones without the trigger finger. These attach into the hands, and then that right there is what this thing looks like up on a shelf with both beam sabers attached. Not that I'd ever be hanging out with a whole bunch of Zakus, but if you ever wanted to know what it would look like hanging out with a whole bunch of Zakus, it'd be something like this. When these are not in use, you can pop them out again, get this off, grab all that handle, and you can actually store these bad boys in one of the coolest places ever, down inside of the knee armor. So I will mention, make sure that you put these in right. There is a peg inside of that hole that you need to make sure it lines up with perfectly, or they will just fall out like this right here. When they're attached into that peg, they will not go anywhere. That is a pretty cool place to keep those sabers. Next up in here, we've got the GN rifle, and according to the instructions right here, this says this is a firearm used during battles against the United Nations forces. It is an improved and evolved version of the equipment used by the Gundam Pluton. Its power is inferior compared to the GN bazooka and GN cannons, but excels in rapid firing. It is also a versatile weapon that can generate a beam blade from its muzzle. So for the most part, this is all in the one color, but the clear part we've got right there inside of this sight. Let's see if I get a little bit more light on that. This looks really, really nice. It's flat and so perfect and just protrudes ever so slightly in a way that makes it look super premium. Just like we would have seen with the beam sabers, this attaches into some fingers, this time with a trigger finger. That then just pops on into the hand like so. And of course, this will need a supply of GN particles, so that pops in the top like this, locking it in position. One of my favorite aspects about Gundam 00 designs. This is going nowhere. Also, it does bend around like so, and a handle flips up like that. So once again, there's what the Master Grade Nadleeh will look like up on a shelf, this time rocking that GN beam rifle. But wait a minute, what is that? A surprise close quarters encounter with the Jinx? Well, don't you worry, we've also got this beam effect in here, which can be used with the GN beam rifle for when things get up close and personal. So the next piece of equipment we have in here is the GN shield, and what it says in the manual is, similar to the GN beam rifle, this shield is an improved version of the Gundam Pluton's equipment. It has a sleek design with a small protective surface, but it is lightweight and easy to wield. GN particles are fixed to the surface of the shield, enabling it to protect the mobile suit against physical bullets and beams. This right here is what the shield looks like out of box with a couple of the decals. I have not done any panel lining, but this is beautiful. That shade of red really stands out. There is no moving mechanisms on this. Besides, around here on the back, we do have an attachment point which can spin around like so. Pretty simple. Attaching this on is super simple. It just plugs into the forearm like that, and that little spinning aspect allows it to spin round just like so. And yet again, there is the Nadleeh up on a shelf so you can see what it looks like in a bit of a display. It's got the shield equipped so you can check out what that looks like as well. So the last of the accessories we're going to be taking a look at today is the pair of GN cannons. Back to the blurb in the manual right now, and this says, these are the dual cannons with barrels that extend when in use. They're connected to the backpack by arms which allow for a wide effective range. Out of the Gundam Virtue's armaments, they're the second most powerful one after the GN bazooka. They can also be used after being removed from their arms, and when they are held by the manipulators of the Gundam Nadleeh, they have an even wider effective range. Each of the cannon units also incorporates GN field generators. So just like it says in the instructions, we've got extending barrels, a flip out handle for using with Nadleeh, and around on the back we do have the ability to slide out this segment here for the release of that GN field. So attaching these might just be the most difficult aspect of this kit. That is because you have to attach the fingers on here first, and then attempt to wrangle the fingers onto the hand between the handle and the actual GN cannon. Now this can be quite difficult to pull off, even when swung all the way forward, and then get it on just like so. And it takes a lot to get it on, but even the most minor twist or movement can mean that can just end up popping off again. So can be difficult to attach and easy to knock off. Bad combo. So yeah, when these are attached, you're going to have to be very careful with them, not to constantly be knocking them off. So finally, there is Nadleeh up with the collection once again, just so you can check it out in a collection, and it is armed with a pair of GN cannons. So in here we also have a choice between a GN drive or a solar furnace. They both slot into the back like this. Throughout the review, I've had the GN drive in here. It just pops out like this. So this is the new style of GN drive, not the one we would have gotten with Exia that falls apart inside the chest. This is a clip, so it's more like the one with Dynames and Kyrios. We do have the choice then of using the solar furnace, and this is kind of, well, a little bit odd. It just kind of balances in this little bit of a cup section that's on the back of Nadleeh, and then you just put it in and hope that it will be fine, because that is all you do. There's nothing that clicks or holds together, and I actually think I can mildly hear it rattle around in there when I shake it around, but besides that, it's not really any different. But this isn't usable with the LED unit sold separately. So now moving into the articulation on old Nadleeh right here, and first off, I will mention a couple of the gimmicks. Mainly because there is a couple in here worth mentioning. First off, we do have those typical clavicles that we would see on these Season 1 00 kits. The other one then is the opening cockpit right here, pops open like so. Inside of that might be a little bit hard to see, but we do have a 1/100 scale area in there, and the whole inside of the cockpit is cast in white, which is a little unusual, but I'll just mention that. But anyway, articulation from the head down. So first off, those cables do not move. These are stuck in place, besides the one in the back, which can tilt up and down ever so slightly. Besides that, as you'd expect, because they are plastic, they do get in the way of the articulation. So you're always just trying to avoid these clashing off of stuff, and in the end, you don't really get much. There's head side to side. There's it looking all the way up, and then looking all the way down. Besides that, though, it's not going to do a lot. Personally, though, in this case, I do prefer the form over function, because if we've got something like the high grade here, which is just these kind of rubbery guys that lets us have all the articulation that we want, well, we wouldn't have this same level of crispy detail. So now the shoulders, once again in 00 Season 1 style, we've got a joint in here that gives us this little bit of forward and back to go with the shoulder joint. The shoulder joint can move from there all the way to there. Inside the chest we have down and up as well, which also goes with the down and the up of the shoulder. So there is the arm raised all the way up, which is incredibly impressive. On top of that, of course, we do have the full spin, and the shoulder is separate, so we have a tilt from there to there. Next up, full spin at the upper arm. Next up there is the bend at the elbow, so it is double jointed and gets us quite a bit. A beautiful wrist design on these kits, so that's full rotation. We've got flexion and extension on top of that, followed by this nice flex and extend. Oh, and the thumb works as well, and usually there's fingers. Next up the torso, that's side to side tilt along the axis of the G and drive. Down a little bit further then we've got side to side, but that is all we can get out of it. And the crunch down below is very, very slight. So we get that, and even more though to the back. So there's back to the front. Inside the waist, you've got a shifting down mechanism, which moves both legs at the same time. And what that does is shift the legs down, like so. As for the kicks then, there it is all the way up to the front, no skirting in the way. There it is all the way out to the back, once again, no skirting in the way. And finally, as the splits, we're going to shift those down. That does look a little bit on the awkward side, but that then is what we get. Next up, we've got the full spin at the upper leg right here. As for the knee joint, it is double jointed. There's the top joint. There is the bottom one for that nice old bend. The armor stays in the center, which looks very, very nice. There is that again with the leg detached. And as for what Nadleeh's blocky little feet can pull off when they're on the ground, there it is all the way to the front, which is quite limited. Hold on, we've got a little flipping out bit of armor right here. Let's see. There it is all the way to the front. So yeah, that is limited. There it is to the back, which is quite nice. And finally then we've got that side all the way to side. So not too bad. Lastly then at the foot, do we have a moving toe? Yeah, it moves ever so slightly upwards. So as for the articulation on the Nadleeh here, on the whole it is quite impressive. The limbs give us quite a bit, the upper body does too, but we do have a couple of limiting factors. The frontwards crunch is a little bit limited, and those big old awesome red cable dreadlocks, as awesome as they are, really extremely limit the head articulation. But besides that though, this thing both looks phenomenal in a pose and poses excellently. So anyway, that right there is it for my review of the Master Grade Gundam Nadleeh. Now this will not be getting a ranking just yet, because this is only half of a model kit. And if I can make a full review of half of a model kit, that is saying something. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at the Master Grade Gundam Virtue. That is Nadleeh right here, packed with all of those massive armor segments. Now I've built the parts already, thoroughly enjoyed them. They look so good and feel great. I cannot wait to get them finished off and popped onto Nadleeh right here. So if you do have any questions you want to know about Nadleeh or the Virtue that you'd like to see in part 2 of this video, please drop it down there in the comments and I will see you next time. Thank you so much to each and every one of you guys for watching these videos. Without you, this channel would not be possible. And my special thanks to those helping out over on the channel memberships and over on Patreon. So that includes Craig Jerry, Caleb Engelhart, Sean T. Van Fawn, Global Frequency Studios, Lawrence Seahack, Joseph Kuklunk, Mr. Winter, Forsetti, Joe, and Orgy 59061.